Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. This week featured our 27th Premier League match at Bramall Lane versus Sheffield United. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. I keep waiting as you do that opening read for you to one day just say, there are no degrees because nothing ever matters. In the whose line is it anyway? Which feels like an appropriate way to talk about Sheffield United.
Yeah, right. Where the points don't matter.
Sweet. Well, there's two answers to that. One is that actually the goals matter a great deal because obviously the title race. Also, Sheffield are really. Ooh, wow.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, so before we get to that, we mentioned last episode, I think we mentioned in the post show that we did catch, you caught as we were getting ready to record last week, that our match numbers were off by one and we didn't know for how long because I scrolled down and looked at the past several episodes and they were all wrong. So I was looking for one that was repeated to try and see, okay, where did I get behind an episode number? I didn't jump one, we repeated one. And thanks to intrepid listener Dove, oh, wait, yeah, it was me. I was apparently at episode 216, and it's funny because it was a Sheffield and Newcastle matches. So we just played Newcastle and Sheffield United again today. Those were both noted as number 11. So it was like every match from number 12 through 25 was off by one. So apologies.
Good on us for catching that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's only because, like, with Manchester City, we're really paying attention to games played where we don't usually pay as much attention to that.
Yeah.
So that is corrected. And no, I'm probably not going to go back and update it for posterity's sake because no one really cares. But anyways, what's going on in the Premier League or FA Cup or the wide world of soccer?
So the big one is from Arsenal perspective. Arsenal's game from the weekend of the 16th, I think it was scheduled to be Saturday or maybe it was Sunday. The Chelsea game has been postponed. Not because of anything weird. Chelsea has advanced in the FA Cup. Although I guess you could say Chelsea advancing in the FA Cup is pretty weird. Good for them though. But since they are in the next round of the FA Cup, their game is being played that weekend. And so as a result, our game with them will be postponed to some point later in the season, probably in midweek in April or something. Just one more thing to really sort of ratchet up the tension on the title race, which does point out to us. So we'll talk about this later. We have two games coming up in the next week plus. So we have, as we'll say, Brentford on Saturday, and then we play Porto in the Champions League on Tuesday. And then after that, we don't play a game until Manchester City on the 31st.
Oh, so we'll have a match in hand when we play Manchester City?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably. Well, actually, they might because I'm pretty sure they're still alive in the FA Cup. They will probably take that weekend off as well for the Premier League. So actually, we should still be even on games played. But it is kind of weird that we'll get 2 weeks off in the middle of the season like that. Although I hear Dubai is lovely.
Well, yeah, it's a little spring break, huh?
Yeah, apparently. I mean, they will get... So the following weekend, the 16th you set off, the following weekend is an international break. So some guys will be going away for that.
Okay, sure.
But not... that'll be essentially an extra week off for Arsenal.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, I think in the interest of time and all that, we're not going to go into excruciating detail on this Sheffield match because really, what's the point? But there are a few things that are worth talking about. The biggest thing that I want to know, and I don't know how much you caught of post-show coverage or post-match coverage, but how is Martinelli doing? Like, he picked up a knock, and that's like the biggest thing that you worry about playing a team like Sheffield United is even though we blow them away 6-0, at what cost to our personnel, right?
Martinelli went off. Obviously, it was a little frightening to see him basically not putting any weight on his foot. That was not great, but apparently the post-game comment from Arteta was that it's a cut on his foot.
Oh, good.
So that
Okay.
is not is just broken bones or anything. I don't, without knowing that the depth or the size of the cut,
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what that means for him this weekend. But I expect that's not the kind of thing that will keep you out for an
Right.
generally not keep you out for an extended period.
Yeah, it's surface level. Yeah.
And obviously we saw Saka came off at the half, which it looks like one of those things going, well, of course you would sub him off. Apparently he wasn't feeling well today, so they got 45 minutes out of him, and then Fabio Vieira came on and put in a nice shift, showed a little more speed than we typically see than you might have expected to see from Fabio Vieira. But aside from the obvious, which is that we blew Sheffield's doors off. I mean, it was 3-0, 15 minutes in? It could have been 5.
Yeah.
They looked completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to say we broke their spirits because they look pretty broken. Like I mean, again, we saw fans streaming out after 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty grim.
I mean, I always hate those weird, awkward, close-ups of the manager's face. Which is just, but what's his name, Chris Wilder? What do you do? And they do. I mean, they're going down. Their goal difference is awful. Apparently, I think they said this is their third or fourth consecutive home game where they've given up 5 goals.
Ooh,
which is really bad.
Ooh,
it's also apparently which I think it's the third time, which I believe they said has never happened in the league before. Arsenal scored 5 goals in an away game. I think they said that was the 4th consecutive game, which has never happened in the Premier League. Wow. However, we did see one streak die, which is we had scored 2 goals in, I think I said 8 consecutive halves. And we only got 1 in the second half, so streak.
I know.
The streak is dead.
Yeah, I was disappointed in that second half. I was hoping to maybe come closer to doubling our lead, but we only got the 1.
I mean, they took the air out of the ball. I mean, I think there's a good argument to be made that up to halftime, anything goes. You're perfectly within your rights to put the pedal down and just run up the score. In the second half, I don't know. There's the break. Everybody kind of there's a sense of relaxing. I wonder if there's sort of not that this is totally a sportsmanship thing, because as we talked about goal difference matters, and given the tightness of the title race, it's going to matter a lot. It wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world to bang in a second one, and they were trying. Jesus was going around. I mean, that was the other big thing, really, this whole game. Gabriel Jesus came on, so he's back.
Partey,
mentioned Fabio Vieira. Yeah, that's right. Thomas Partey is back.
Yeah.
And Partey looked pretty rusty. Jesus was moving around, but we've seen him a little bit. See Fabio Vieira first time in a while. Really, it means there were reports this week that Jurrien Timber is at training. Still probably a ways away, but he is listed on the Champions League roster. So I don't want to sit here and say, well, if we make the semifinals, I don't know. But they put him on the roster and you only get so many spots. That says to me they think he could be ready at some point in the future. He's not playing against Porto next Wednesday. That seems unfathomable to me. But again, I don't know. So
when you say he's on the Champions League roster, how often do they change that? Is it per match or
no? So at the start of the league season, they call it a register a roster. So basically, you say that you have the number of players. This is our Premier League roster. These are the guys we're allowed to play, and then you can add guys for injury reasons, but mostly this is the list of the roster. Same thing with other competitions. So the FA Cup, the League Cup. And then also your European competition will have a registered roster.
Right.
So you get a limited number of spots. At least the Champions League, and I assume the Europa League did this too, resets after the group stage and leading into the knockout stages. We put Timber on the knockout stage roster.
Okay.
Which says it clearly says we think he could be ready.
Right. Before the end of a season at some point. Or
at least before the final, if he's not going to be ready for before June, then he wouldn't do that.
Right.
I would not put him out in the final if he hasn't played anything.
Right. No,
that seems like a terrible idea.
I'd be careful putting him in any game with stakes when he hasn't had the rest of the season to kind of mesh with the team.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Arteta approaches that, and obviously how his own recovery,
Mm-hmm.
basically leads to that. So I don't, it's interesting. But as you said, guys are starting to come back. Tomiyasu is the only one we don't really have any update on. Hopefully, because he would be nice to have. But it's nice to see Ben White get some time off. I know we joke about Cedric, but more importantly, Ben White came off, Rice came off.
Yeah.
Saka came off. Like guys who we really talked about getting a rest, and obviously it was for injury, but Martinelli getting a rest too. It's good to have these kinds of moments where you don't have to go. And we saw this a lot last year, right? Think about how many late finishes we had throughout the
Yeah.
season where you needed your guys to go 90. And we don't have to do that this year. We can,
Right.
especially now since the calendar's flipped. I mean, we really have. Other than really the two. I mean, certainly in the league, we have been rampant. The Liverpool game, and frankly, we outplayed Liverpool in the FA Cup game, but we couldn't finish. They finished, and that kind of sort of up, swung the game. And then other than that, the Porto one is the only one where they really haven't looked that great. But Dragao's a tough place to go, and we get them at home. So
Right. So yeah, so just a couple more quick things to talk about with the Sheffield match. So one thing I really did need some clarification from you about is we were talking a little bit before the show, and I was trying to remember, was it the third goal? And no, it was apparently the fourth goal where some player from Sheffield was tugging severely at Martinelli, like wrenched him to the ground.
He throws him to the ground. Yeah,
absolutely. Which it should have been at least a foul and could have been a yellow card. Looked to me maybe even almost severe enough to be a red card, but the ref plays advantage, and then Havertz ends up scoring. That was Havertz's goal. Yeah. So I was curious. Like, I was hearing about like the fans being upset that he did let play go on, that maybe the keeper was expecting play to be stopped, so he wasn't ready. I mean, I know we always say you play to the whistle.
Yeah.
And that would be the answer to that. But
I mean, you have to be watching. I think that was the right call. I mean, the play is still going forward, and it was to Arsenal's benefit. Obviously, we see they scored the goal. We know it was to their benefit, but Arsenal is still making the run forward. As you're the referee, Martinelli gets the pass off, so the ball is still going. Arsenal still is in a good position for an attack. It is a bit of a judgment call. I suppose you could argue if Havertz gets held up, if Martinelli would be able to come in and be an outlet, and there's a give and go. But I didn't see anything in there that struck me as unusual. Martinelli made the run, Martinelli made the pass. Havertz finished it. I mean, it was a good advantage. And like you said, if the keeper doesn't want to, if the keeper decides to switch off there, mentally, well, it's not my problem.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You gotta play. That's why I say they play to the whistle. Like, you can't be. I mean, ideally, he should be, kind of side-eye the referee, and the referee, of course, gives that, dramatic, the arms forward advantage. So, I mean, you can, but at that point, obviously, given the position, the keeper's not watching the referee. You've got to be watching the ball and the play around you. So.
And listening for the whistle, which was not blown. So, yeah.
And, look, it's not like they were making a lot of noise there.
Yeah, right. You couldn't hear the whistle over the crickets.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So I don't. That to me, and again, I was watching in my office at work. I was fine. I wasn't interrupting anything I should have been doing, but I didn't have the sound all the way up or anything, so I can't say I heard much of the commentary about that.
Yeah.
But watching as I sort of saw it developing out of the corner of my eye and watched over to make sure I saw it when they scored, and then the replay is like, no, that seems right. Referee, there was a foul. The referee played advantage. I was a little surprised because I've seen some debate about this, so I'm not going to pretend I know for sure the rule. But I've always been under the impression the referee is always has the discretion to decide the foul he plays advantage is a yellow, and I think you could have given a yellow for that. It was pretty cynical.
Yeah, and I guess my question about that would be, can he give the yellow after having let play continue like that?
Yes.
And then you still, okay.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's a famous one involving, so the point is the referee will play the advantage, but he can always go back and issue the card retroactively.
Right.
there's a famous one where Martinelli actually picked up 2 yellows in the same sequence, which is unheard of. I mean, it was a ridiculous application of the rules, and Martinelli actually got himself tossed for that because he committed a foul. The referee played advantage, and then he committed a second foul.
Wow.
And the second one was not great, but I forget the exact circumstances, but I think like the first foul was like, but the ball was out of bounds. Like it shouldn't even have been thrown in. Like it should have stopped and given the card. Like it shouldn't have been played out in a situation where you could have even done that. So that was a mismanagement. But yes, the referee is always under his discretion to, as I understand it, has the discretion to go back and issue a card. I mean, not like to come back 10 minutes later and be like, oh, by the way, remember that really nasty tackle? Yeah, by the way, I should have. No, but in that instance, because he played advantage, there was a foul that happened. I guess he clearly determined that was not a yellow.
Right.
In his eyes. Okay.
Yeah. Before we leave this, one thing I just want to point out that I didn't realize from the last time we played them, and it's super interesting. Like, so they're one of the few clubs that is older than Arsenal by a lot.
There are quite a few clubs that are a bit older than Arsenal
that I've seen play, I guess, against them. Like 1857 is when they were founded, and the grounds that they play on, Bramall Lane, they hosted their first football match on December 29th, 1862. And that field is still around and being used. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I assume it's been updated a little bit over the years.
At least the stands, I would hope.
Yeah. I bet the pitch has been too. I'm sure they've got like heaters and some other some of the modern groundskeeping stuff. But yeah, it's been a while. Good for Bramall Lane,
Let's talk momentarily about the platform that we use to bring this episode to you, which is called Zencastr. So we use Zencastr for every episode of the show, and it gives us a lot. So it makes it super easy to record a podcast. You just log in with your browser and you start recording a high quality podcast right away. You click one button, gives you a countdown, you're done. You record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. It's an all-in-one solution, so if you've thought about podcasting before and gave up thinking you needed a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and then distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. They also have a new iPhone app, so it's easier than ever to record now with their iPhone app. If that sounds good to you and you want to start your passion project, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code Gooner and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. There is no final E in Zencastr, so Zencastr. I want you to have the same easy experience as we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time for you to share your story. All right, so who is your player of the match?
Yeah, I guess we did pack a whole week's worth into one game, didn't we?
Right.
So my cynical answer would be Oliver Norwood, who was the Sheffield player subbed off after 17 minutes because he got to leave.
Do you know what the actual reason was? Were they just trying to change things up? I didn't see an injury.
I think they were trying some change there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the short. Gosh, you could point just about any Arsenal player, and they were, or they were either like they were great, or they just didn't do any. Like, what did Saliba or Gabriel even do tonight?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I am gonna say I think you have to go with the maestro, the string puller. I think you have to say Martin Odegaard.
Okay.
In a performance that dominant, the central midfielder, the guy who sort of runs the show like he does, is going to be the one, I think, who kind of stands out because he was everywhere. I mean, Saka was great, even though his goal was technically an own goal.
Right.
Ben White gets on the scoreboard. Declan Rice was his usual awesome self. But I'm going to go with Martin Odegaard, who apparently, as I caught bits and pieces of the commentary, apparently his father was in town to see this game. So,
cool.
So good show for Dad there. I'm going to say the captain, Odegaard for me.
So let's circle back to that own goal because I do have another question comment about that. But so I often will bring an element of chaos to player of the match. As mentioned, actually thinking about how this is going to be cut up, maybe as mentioned during the episode about the movie Next Goal Wins, which you guys should watch. It's going to be really good. We just finished talking about that. But I watched this like kind of while working. My full attention was not on it a lot. So it's a little hard for me to really pick player of the match. I was leaning towards Martinelli, and if I were to give a serious pick, it would probably be him, just for contributions to multiple goals and then taking one for the team. But I'm not going to pick him. He gets honorable mention. I'm going to pick Ben White. He had a really nice shot, and I've given him a lot of grief over that header some weeks ago that eventually I'll let go. But that was a really unexpectedly nice shot from him, which the commentator said I think was even not his dominant foot, which makes it even more impressive.
It was all foot, which is, absolutely.
So I would say Ben White. Not that he was the best player of the match, and like you said, the defenders didn't really have too much to do today, but yeah, I'll give him some recognition. So
a fair point.
So what's coming up for next week?
So next week, we only have 2 games. Well, we have 3 games technically left in the month of March, but we have 2 games before a very long break, as we mentioned. Saturday, we are home to Brentford. And by the way, special note on this game, we will not be playing with David Raya, as we have mentioned before. Since he is technically on loan from Brentford, he won't play. So the triumphant return of Aaron Ramsdale.
Yes.
Nice to see him. It's, I gotta believe Ramsdale is going to be sold over the summer. I assume Raya is going to be brought in permanently, and Ramsdale will end up going somewhere where he can play every day, which, I mean, I can't fault the man for. He's been a good servant to the club, etc., etc. But, he'll come in, he'll get his opportunity here, and, obviously, I don't want to say hope he makes the most of it, because frankly, I hope Brentford doesn't get anywhere near a goal, and it doesn't matter. But yeah, so we'll see Ramsdale in goal for Brentford on Saturday, and then next Tuesday we will be home against Porto in the second leg of the Champions League round of 16 qualifier. No, I'm sorry. Actually, wait, is that Tuesday or is that Wednesday? I have to look and see. I'm not confusing my dates.
That is Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, right? Because we played Wednesday was the first leg. Yeah, so there we go. Sorry, Tuesday.
Yep.
Tuesday. Arsenal, Porto, we have to overturn a 1-0 deficit, which at home I do feel pretty good about our chances. It's easy to be a little pessimistic after the way the first leg played out, but coming home, I think, I mean, I don't want to say we couldn't have played worse, but we were not great in Portugal, so I expect a much better performance. Yeah, I expect a better performance. That'll be Tuesday. We'll look to overturn that and hopefully prepare ourselves for the draw for the quarterfinals.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also listen to our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube. There's a link in the show notes to take you there. Wherever you watch or listen, please like, subscribe, rate, or review to share the show. And thanks again to our sponsor, Zencaster. You can find them with our special link in the description. Find us on Twitter with a link in the description to get updates and ask questions. Again, my name is Dove. You can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
Come on, you Gunners.
All right. Intro end. Okay. So, yeah, good. So, yeah, it was like what I did, only a little bit longer, and I'll probably end up chopping off the beginning of what I did before, so I don't repeat myself.
Yeah.
So now this is the post show. For which episode, I don't know.
Whatever, for all of the above.
Yeah, I don't know which I'll tack this on to. Which probably the Sheffield one, because it's so much shorter to begin with. So let's do show titles. So for Sheffield, it was a pretty short episode. The only one that I added on during our additional segment was Good Show for Dad. So we have I Hear Dubai is Lovely, Weird Awkward Close-Ups, It's Not My Problem, and Good Show for Dad.
I'd say Weird Awkward Close-Ups or Good Show for Dad. I kind of lean towards either of those.
Yeah. Me too. Do you have a preference between those?
Not particularly. You?
I think Good Show for Dad is kind of funny because we know that my dad is one of our biggest fans.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you
There you
think?
go. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, no, it works. It works for me.
All right, so next goal wins. We have It Gets Ugly, Captain of the Mutiny, Premier League awful, footwear is compulsory, just no, hard to explain, cynical fouling, a lesser Hemsworth. I'm seeing the word much. I don't know what that was supposed to be.
And just much. I kind of like footwear is compulsory, actually.
Okay.
I feel like it's a good reference to the movie itself, as opposed to so many of the others, which were
exactly. Okay, yeah, I'll go with that. All right. So, oh boy, what a mess editing this is going to be. So for anyone listening to this now, so what we did was originally we talked about this before the show. And we said, okay, well, we'll talk about Sheffield and then transition into Next Goal Wins, make it all one episode, and we'll call an audible. Like if we end up talking about Sheffield for more than half an hour, we'll just end the episode and then start a new recording for Next Goal Wins. But the Sheffield discussion turned out to be maybe 20 minutes. And so after the ad read, I just transitioned into doing the Next Goal Wins episode. Well, by the time that was all done and we'd gone on for about an hour talking about Next Goal Wins, which I'm actually proud of us. That was actually pretty controlled. Like I think we could have sunk into like certain quagmires and talked about certain things a lot longer. I think we kept a decent pace covering a hour and a half movie in less than its runtime. But so then we finished recording and we were like, well, wait a second. Maybe we should split it out into its own separate episode because the runtime is about how our episodes usually go. And then Keith pointed out, we also forgot to do our player of the match and to talk about what's coming up next week. So we kind of broke from our typical format because after the movie discussion was over, I read the outro. So we circled back and did more of that. And then we circled back and record a new intro for the movie discussion. So it's going to be fun. I have some breadcrumbs that I left myself to try and find what's in different places so I don't have to listen through the whole thing, but I'll listen to transition points. But yeah, so I'm going to get going to get started on all that. So have a good one, Keith.
See ya.